Hello, my fellow chefs. Today we talk po' boys, having fun and being mentally prepared. I am Mark Rigsby, your chef and guide through this experience, and this is the incredible Discourse. Hello and welcome. I am Mark Rigsby, and you have found me here again at the Incredible Discourse. And in the kitchen today, we're inspired by game day. Football season has begun, and that means game day food has arrived. Today, I'm going to teach you how to make a sandwich, but not any sandwich, a very tasty and simple sandwich that you can make right before the game to get your grub on. We're talking about po' boy sandwiches. I have always loved fried shrimp and oysters, but on a sandwich with remoulade, it's to die for. The shrimp and oysters are marinated in buttermilk and dredged in a seasoned flour and cornmeal mix that provides an extra crispy crust on the outside that will hold up against the sauce without getting soggy quickly. I also like the freshness of the simple lettuce, tomato, and pickle. It gives a nice contrast to the heaviness of the fried shellfish. The best thing about this recipe is that there aren't a lot of flashy ingredients, just simple, tasty food. Before we get into the kitchen, I want to tell you a little bit about the origin of this dish. The most widely accepted story comes from the early 20th century. During the New Orleans streetcar workers' strike of 1929, brothers Benny and Clovis Martin, who were former streetcar workers and owners of a restaurant, vowed to support their fellow strikers by feeding them free sandwiches. The Martins created a simple, hearty sandwich made with inexpensive ingredients like French bread and either fried seafood or roasted meat. When the striking workers came into their restaurant, the Martins reportedly said, "Oh, here comes another poor boy," referring to the unemployed strikers. The term stuck, and soon the sandwich became known as the poor boy or po' boy. The brothers asked local baker John Gandusa to make a special, inexpensive loaf of bread for these sandwiches. Po' boy bread is made similarly to French bread, but with less flour and more water, resulting in a lighter, fluffier bread. After the streetcar strike ended, the po' boy continued to gain popularity throughout New Orleans, becoming a staple food for the working class. Over time, various versions of the sandwich evolved. Fried seafood varieties, particularly shrimp and oyster po' boys, became especially popular due to New Orleans' proximity to the Gulf Coast and its vibrant seafood industry. Sometimes food comes from a weird place in history, but usually those are the ones that are the most memorable. Most times, the food that has a story behind it are the ones that are most delicious. Those dishes not only fill your stomach, but your heart as well, and this is one of those dishes. So let's get into the kitchen and get it. Let's go through our equipment list for today's recipe. Now we're frying, so it would certainly help if you had a deep fryer. If you're in a professional kitchen, it's likely that you do. So let's crank it to 350 degrees. If you don't have a deep fryer, that's perfectly fine. We can do it out of a skillet right on the stovetop. In this case, you'll need a deep skillet and a thermometer. The thermometer will help you keep a constant temperature. If you want to be fancy, use a candy thermometer that attaches to the side of the pan. You don't have to. Any thermometer will do. Next, you're going to need 2 mixing bowls. We will be using these bowls for several purposes during this recipe. That being said, you'll need 2 regular soup bowls for holding or staging. We will also need a serrated knife, a whisk, a rubber spatula, measuring equipment, and a sheet pan. And that's basically it. Like I keep saying, this is a simple dish. We don't need a lot of ingredients or equipment to make a really tasty sandwich. Now we can talk about ingredients, and in this section I'm going to break down the recipe into 4 parts. Let's start with the Cajun spice. This spice is super versatile, and I've scaled this recipe to yield about 1 cup of spice. You're going to need an ample amount because we're going to add it to almost every component of this sandwich. Anyhow, for this spice, you're going to need 8 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 4 teaspoons of granulated garlic, 4 teaspoons of onion powder, 4 teaspoons of oregano, 4 teaspoons of dried thyme, 4 teaspoons of black pepper, 4 teaspoons of cayenne, 4 teaspoons of salt. Oh, shit. Might as well throw in 4 teaspoons of love, too, while we're at it. Next, we're going to go through the ingredients for the remoulade. Remoulade is a French sauce that made its way to Louisiana through French settlers in the late 1800s to early 1900s. To make this delicious sauce, I'm going to need 4 tablespoons of heavy-duty mayo, 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard, a half teaspoon of whole grain mustard, a half teaspoon of lemon juice, half teaspoon of hot sauce, a half teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, half a teaspoon of dill pickle relish, 6 parsley sprigs, just the leaves, half a medium shallot minced, 1/8 of a teaspoon of smoked paprika, half a teaspoon of the Cajun spice that we're going to make. And you're going to need some salt and pepper, but at the end when you taste it. There are many, many, many variations and recipes out there for remoulade. Hell, I have 3 or 4 different ones depending on the application I'm using it for. This one we're going to make today is really, really good for fried shrimp and oysters. This sauce is going to make this rather simple sandwich taste amazing and bring it all together. Now for the sandwich. I'm going to need a French bread loaf or hoagie roll. If you get an entire loaf of French bread, you're going to have to cut it down to just 1 portion. I'd say about 6 to 8 inches is probably good enough. Sometimes bakers or even at the grocery stores, they'll sell French bread in smaller hoagie-sized loaves, or you could just go with the typical hoagie roll. Either way, just not Wonder Bread. This won't be good with your pantry square, boring white bread. Save that shit for your peanut butter and jelly. Next, you're going to need about a cup of shredded lettuce. Romaine or iceberg work really well here because they're crunchy. 1 tomato sliced really thin, and about a half cup of sliced dill pickles. Lastly, we get to the shrimp. If you want to use oysters, you can. It's your choice. You could even use both if you wanted to go nuts. For the shrimp, you're going to need to make sure that they're peeled and deveined with the tail off. For the oysters, they'll obviously need to be shucked already and free from shell pieces. Some grocery stores and fish markets sell buckets of oysters already shucked and ready to go. You'll need 6 to 8 shrimp or oysters to make this sandwich. Go with the larger oysters or the 16-20 shrimp. Those are usually a good size to go with. I'll be using shrimp in this recipe, but it's important to note that the method doesn't change with either protein. Next, you'll need about 1.5 cups of buttermilk, 1.5 cups of AP flour, and an equal part of fine yellow cornmeal, and about 1/2 cup of the Cajun spice that we're going to make. We will also need oil for frying depending on which way you're going with, either the deep fryer or the stovetop. I know the ingredients list seems like a lot, but many of the items are common ingredients that you probably already have on hand. The flour, the ingredients for the Cajun spice, those things you should have in your pantry by now, especially after all these recipes that we've done. I know I use a lot of these same ingredients over and over and over again. All right, now that the shopping is done, let's finally cook. Since I have a couple of different things I need to make within this recipe, I'm going to start with the shrimp and then I'll do the Cajun spice. Add the shrimp to one of the mixing bowls and add the buttermilk. I'm going to mix with my hands to make sure every shrimp is getting a little bit of this buttermilk. Next is the Cajun spice. This one is simple. I mean, they're all fucking simple, but this one is probably the easiest. I'm going to add all of the ingredients to the second mixing bowl and I'm going to whisk well until it's incorporated. Then I'm going to transfer this spice mix to one of those holding bowls and I'm going to set it aside. Easy, right? Next, we're going to make the remoulade. Just like the Cajun spice, we're going to add everything to that same mixing bowl we just made the spice in, and we're going to whisk it to incorporate. Afterwards, I'm going to add this sauce to the second holding bowl. Now I'm going to rinse this mixing bowl out, and I'm going to dry it with a paper towel. It's important to note that it has to be completely dry because I'm going to add my dry cornmeal mix, and I don't want any moisture in it because it'll cause clumps. At this point, I need to make sure that my grease is getting hot, so if you have a deep fryer, get it and set it to 350. If you're working out of the pan, let's fill it with the oil, get it on medium heat, attach our candy thermometer, and by the time you get the breading done, the oil should be hot. I'm going to add the cornmeal, the AP flour, and the Cajun spice into the mixing bowl that I just dried, and I'm going to whisk well to incorporate. By this time, the shrimp should be marinating for at least 15 minutes, so I'm going to start the breading process. I'm going to add half of the marinated shrimp to the cornmeal mix. I'm going to shake the bowl to bury them a little bit and then push the dry batter to make it stick and form a crust. I'm going to take out these shrimp and lay them on the sheet pan and then repeat the process again with the second half of the shrimp. Once I have all 8 ready, it's time to fry. I'm going to drop these shrimp into the grease carefully so it doesn't splatter and burn me. Grease burns are a terrible thing, so beware. The shrimp take about 3 to 5 minutes to cook up. They should be nice and golden and crispy. And while this is cooking, I'm going to line my sheet pan with a paper towel to prepare a holding spot for my shrimp to drain. Next, I take out the shrimp and I put them on the paper towels and let the paper soak up the excess grease so they don't get soggy. I'm going to sprinkle these shrimp with a little bit of salt right out of the grease to bring out some flavor. Now it's time to make the sandwich. Start with cutting the French bread on its side, but not all the way through. You want to create a pocket of sorts for the filling. Now add the lettuce into that pocket, followed by the tomato and then the pickle. Next, I'm going to add the shrimp and I'm going to tuck them into that pocket. Now it's time to make it good. I'm going to spoon this remoulade sauce generously over the shrimp, and then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more of that Cajun spice over it because I like that kick. And that's it. We made a shrimp po' boy. Like I said, you can do the same exact process if you wanted to use oysters instead of the shrimp. Either way, this is a really good sandwich for almost any occasion, especially game day. Another variation you could do here, specifically for game day, is make po' boy sliders. And you can get creative with your pairings here. You could make some homemade chips or fries or hush puppies. Man, I love me some freshly fried hush puppies. I should do a show on that one soon. They're so delicious. Or you could do a salad or coleslaw. This sandwich is very versatile and could be paired with almost anything. If you want to get really Cajun or Cajun for us not from them Louisiana parts, you could make mock shoe to go with this. It's made with corn, peppers, onions, garlic, and tomatoes. I'll do a recipe of this soon, and we'll tie it all together. Whew, it's straight hard there. I apologize. Anyhow, let me know what you think about this recipe, and if you guys have any variations of it. Send me your thoughts, questions, and pictures of your work at theincrediblediscourse.com, where you can find all things that we're up to. It has all of these recipes on there, as well as copies of all of our episodes to date. Remember, we're always here to help you get better and to mentor you to go where you want to in this culinary world. Anyhow, now it's time for Food for Thought, or what I like to call Pro Tips from a Chef's Lips. So this next topic works for both my home cooks and my pros. It's good to start here because the next topic, which is for my pros, could give you a scary insight to what lies ahead if you're a rookie coming into this big world of culinary. I want all cooks from all walks of life to remember to do one thing: have fun. Sure, there is a lot of things that I want you to remember. How to use the fucking knife, control the fucking heat, reading the recipe, but none of this matters if you're not having fun doing it. Yes, kitchen work can be stressful and sometimes complicated, but the journey in the work you're putting in should be gratifying and fun. Don't get frustrated so easily. Mistakes can and will happen. It's all part of the process. And through these mistakes, you will learn loads. If you're passionate about cooking, welcoming these mistakes and learning from them is all part of your growth. I can't count how many mistakes I have made over all these years, and I may not be able to put a number on it, but I remember all of them, and I do my absolute best not to make those mistakes again when I'm revisiting the same situations or recipes. I even write on the recipe or make a correction to them if I feel I won't remember. Writing things down helps us remember things. I don't know about you guys out there, but when I mess up or forget something, it weighs down on me. It's hard to forget. It's like throwing an interception with the game on the line. It kind of stays with you for a while until you pick yourself back up, correct it, and keep it moving towards the bigger goal. But don't get frustrated. It just adds to the negativity. Turn the negative into a positive and learn from the error. Cooking is an outlet for creativity and should inspire you. Not every dish is the same, and there are variations to just about everything. With this in mind, the combinations are legitimately endless. That fact should get you excited. And when things don't go the way that you plan them, keep an open mind about what is actually happening as a whole. At the very least, you know what not to do next time, especially if you're at home. If you're in a professional kitchen, you may get a little heat for fucking up, but in the end, the same premise is there. You learn something. Instead of getting frustrated and throwing a tantrum like you're 5 years old, take a second to reflect on what or where you possibly made the error. Think about how this affected the outcome of what you were trying to do, and make a note of how to make it better next time. Shit, even if you pulled off your technique and execution and made a perfect dish, take a second to reflect on how you can evolve it and make it better next time. There's always room for improvement or evolution. My last bit of advice for this topic is to let cooking be therapeutic. It shouldn't be a burden. When I'm cooking, I'm usually in my zen place, even if it's chaotic. Most of the time, I find the most peace within the chaos. I feel the adrenaline and the rush of my brain making tiny calculations and adjustments in the moment, and when it's all said and done and on the plate, one of two things always happen: affirmation or lesson. Sometimes both. Either way, it's a good thing, and that's what we have to remember when we're in the kitchen. Have fun with it, guys. That is what's at the heart of cooking. Someone once said that you can taste when the cook is happy or mad or sad on the plate, and it makes sense. When you're happy and having fun, usually the best is brought out of you. But when you're mad, you miss things because you're so fucking focused on being mad. Whoever said that's a fucking genius. It could have been me. No, I doubt it, though. The point is have fun with it and eat well, or eat from the fucking microwave and stay pissed off. It's your choice. Now, this next topic may scare some of you who are entering the professional culinary industry, but I want you to know before we begin that this is not the intent of this dialogue. This dialogue is to, like all of my advice columns, give you an insight from a professional, seasoned, experienced chef who has seen many things in this industry, paid his dues, and is now trying to pay it forward by giving you the reality of this business. If you have been in the industry for a while, you already know what I'm about to say, and you can take the night off. So, young chefs and cooks coming into your first professional kitchens or getting ready to enter culinary school. Let me tell you, what you see on TV is not what it's really like in the real world, and what they teach you in culinary school, although useful in some aspects, is not what your day-to-day will be in a pro kitchen. Point blank, be prepared to be tired, and often. Be prepared to be dedicated to your work, and not home. It doesn't sound good, but the fact is, the hours are long and you're going to be on your feet for hours and hours at a time. Your knees and your back will feel like they never stop hurting. You will feel like you never get enough sleep, and there are those occasional burns and cuts. There usually aren't many breaks during service, and the stress is high. You'll have to be dedicated not only because you want to, but because you need to. There are so many details that go into this work that it's easy to miss something, and you have to backtrack to make the correction. Being there and being mentally present will drain you. You almost start to become part of this society of cooks that are constantly immersed in cooking and food. It will be all that you think about. It will be all that you talk about. And it'll be all that you want to do. Now, I'll tell you that to tell you this. With all that in mind, take time for yourself. Set boundaries and limitations up front with your chef and management team, especially if you have kids and a family. You'll never get those moments back. You'll never get those times back. And I've missed so many birthdays, holidays, or just time watching my kids grow for this industry. And I'll be the first to tell you in the end, there's no service or dish that's worth giving up those moments. Your kids are only kids for a short time, and then they grow up and shit changes. And I haven't even gotten into if you're married. Being married and being a chef is a difficult task, especially if you marry someone who is not in the industry, who has not put in the hours in the kitchen, and doesn't know what you're going through. It's not impossible, no. But you also have to understand your partner's needs and wants, and you have to split your time appropriately. Their growth and desires also have a time limit. And no one in this industry says, fuck, I miss my kid's whole life. Or, I wish my wife and I could have done this, but it's okay, because you know what? We had a fucking hell of a service. I've never heard anyone say that. And I'm not saying that there aren't some sick puppies out there who live and die by the service. I'm saying I have never met them. The point is, take care of yourself and your families. It's what's most important. This industry can be unforgiving. Set your boundaries with your chef. Be firm on your limits and have fun, because once the fun stops, the value and the worth start to diminish. I hope you make yourself some po' boys and let me know if you enjoyed them. They're fairly easy to make and are super delicious. And remember, my young chefs, have fun and enjoy this cooking shit. It should be therapeutic. It should be relaxing. And in a pro setting, if you don't like the chaos and the craziness day to day, then it's probably not for you. And I don't want to scare you, but you know what we do here on The Incredible Discourse. I tell you the truth and give you the real about the business. And if you have any questions or you need a little encouragement or help, hit me up at theincredible.discourse.com. And if you like what you heard today and want to support the show, there's a link in the description, and be sure to leave me 5 stars on Spotify or a great review wherever you're listening to this. And make sure you visit us at theincrediblediscourse.com as well as all of our social platforms. I appreciate your time as always. I'm Mark Grigsby, and you've just been put through The Incredible Discourse. Till next time, you know what to do. Theme music!